Yeah. Yeah. Chatting with a lot of folks across the nation, getting the whole national network engaged, especially in bunker labs.
Mm.
It's been cool.
Yeah.
So I
So,
think I touched on it a little bit before. But the
yeah, give me a little more explanation in terms of your sort of affiliations and kind of how you roll.
Sure. And you gotta, sorry, shameless plug. I've been drinking Counter Strike coffee all day, and it's like, anyway.
So
But
give me more shameless plug. Tell me about
yeah,
Counter-Strike Coffee.
well, I do it on purpose because Counter Strike Coffee is another veteran-led business that's out there, and our biggest thing is to collaborate with other veterans.
Cool.
It's not veteran only. Don't get me wrong. It's
Right.
just you got to lift up the tribe. You know how that goes.
Yes.
I'm sure that you probably have a group of friends that you went to school with, or maybe alum of a similar college or something
Right.
like that. It's very much so the same. It's just veterans cross over to different branches very easily. So we've
Cool.
got the whole veteran, network. But yeah, Doc Buttrey is the founder over there. He's an FMF corpsman, so he served with Marines in combat. But if you go to Counter Strike Coffee, you can get 10% off with our coupon code Cigars and C, which is pretty cool. And then veteranslist.us, which is where you can find Counter Strike Coffee. Veteranslist.us is owned by Will Amos and Ray Yost,
Hmm.
and they're both veterans. It's kind of like Angie's List for veterans. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah. We also work with First Data. That's our like major big sponsor, so to speak. But they're an affiliate program. So if you're another entrepreneur and you want to get hooked up for credit card capture, just go through us. We'll get your referral over to our rep. And then I've seen her get rates as low as 1.2%. And
Wow,
there's
cool.
no, I mean, you don't have a merchant account. So, I mean,
Right.
imagine being able to take 98 cents or more on every dollar
Right.
that goes through a credit capture. I mean, that's like insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I want to start working with them. That and they're also a huge proponent for the Institute of Veteran Military and Families,
Mm.
which
Interesting.
is yeah,
So
we're
with all of this sort of vet related sort of industry that you're involved in and taking a part in creating, how has being selected as a TEDx speaker, how has that affected your network?
well, it's definitely so I'm looking to bring the 5 paragraph business plan to the masses
Oh, cool. Okay.
overall. To, so if you're an entrepreneur who's looking to get into a Marine Corps, not necessarily mentality, but the operational mindset of how we structure and plan, it's the same way that we plan and coordinate an operation, only now we're going to do it for a business. And I
Hmm.
originally came up with that to correlate what we learned in the military with what we're trying to learn as business people. Um, so it's definitely helped in that regard. But truth be told, I mean, I've done TEDxRaleigh or I applied to TEDxRaleigh because I adopted the mantra of adding value to the world when I was in Quantico.
Mm.
So I mean, that mantra has been living with me for almost 6 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's the reason why I wanted to be in TEDx, but it's had an adjacent effect, a very
Right.
positive adjacent effect. So,
Yeah.
how about you with Dale Carnegie and a lot of these other things that you're doing?
Um, well, part of the reason why I sort of applied to the TEDx thing in the first place is just I'm just a TED and TEDx kind of fanboy. Like I eat it up, and like earlier this morning, the way I started my day was I watched like 3 TED talks just because it's just that kind of stuff that gets me going.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've been a huge I guess addicted in a way to personal development since sometime around 2006, and part of it's my story. So I don't want to tell give my TED talk like right now.
Right.
Even though I'm always tempted to, and it's a story I've been telling for a lot of years. But you know, TED, Dale Carnegie, and people that are sort of about the same thing, which is sharing ideas that are worth spreading, has really revolutionized my life and the way that I learn, the way that I interact with people, the way that I connect with people, And so it's just one of those things. I just like, I feel like it's family, you know. I feel like it's really natural. And I was really fortunate and really lucky to get picked the first time that I applied, because I know that there are people like, even I don't know if you know Kevin Snyder, the curator for TEDxRaleigh.
Yes, he's actually my presenter coach, and I
Oh,
consider
cool.
myself extremely fortunate in that regard.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Have you done a test run yet?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I don't want to say no because, of course, I've done numerous test runs, but the idea of an actual like polished rehearsal run, no,
Okay.
because I've been going through and I've been, I'm like you. I have the story. The story is 45 minutes long
Right.
if I really want to give
Right.
it.
And that's probably the short version.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like if somebody was like, "Hey, Mike, we wanted you to do a keynote on, some." See, the beautiful thing that I love about my story is I've gotten to play the camera's eye
Mm,
and bear witness to a lot of people do amazing things.
right.
Even, I mean, whatever. We were all in combat. We all did our little bit and stuff like that, and I did my little bit. But to bear witness to see people do amazing acts of heroism or just true triumphant, you're like, wow, that's some Hercules stuff going on
Right.
right now. And then you
Right.
look at the man in the uniform who's 120 pounds dripping wet, and you're like, I mean, my spotter, I call him the babyface killer. This dude was awesome. His name's Austin, and I won't share his last name because he's deployed right now. But he's a fantastic individual, and he dealt with a lot of crap when we were overseas, getting woken up at 03 just to go up and get logistics and stuff like that. And then we've got to go on mission, later on that day. It's awful. But there's one day that sticks out in my mind where we got to do work side by side. And it was probably the most proud moment I've ever experienced as a leader in combat. But not to say that I was his leader, to say that two Marines side by side were working and making sure that our fellow brethren down on the field were safe through overhead fire and stuff like that. So I got to witness him do a lot of those things, sure, and partake in it, but it's just looking back on that experience is very, very cool.
Yeah.
And it's humbling.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
awesome.
comes out in a lot of the different experiences in the story as well.
Right. Cool. Have you,
They're all,
when you were telling me that one book, Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last, have you read that?
I haven't. No,
Okay.
not yet.
He
I
actually
mean, I experienced it.
right. You were there, right? Maybe you don't
Right.
maybe you don't read it the same way that I did. But it reminded me of that, and how we can get so much from the way that our military and the way that our the things that our vets know, that we take for granted, I think is really a shame. And I love the idea of the business plan that you're spreading. I think it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing, and it's, one of the things that I'm really about is there are so many things that we already know. The problem is we don't execute against the things we already know. And a lot of times we're really better at giving advice than we are at living our own life.
Yeah.
Right. And many times if you just say, okay, so, and actually this was a thought I had the other day that I kind of fleshed out in my mind a little bit is, like, what would happen if I woke up in the morning and I was my mentor? Like, what advice would I give myself? And I had all this crazy good advice that was applicable and relatable to what was happening with me right now. And I'm thinking, like, dude, why am I not doing this already? Like, I knew to do it, and I think the same thing happens with our vets, right? I mean, they have this wealth of experience and knowledge and understanding and all this leadership capability, and we don't ask them the questions.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. I don't want to say that you're partially right, but that's like half the answer, because I hear what you're saying, and to echo it, exactly what what I'm hearing is we want to be able to help ourselves, and we individually put a shunt in our own brain. That's when
Right.
imposter syndrome happens and all of that other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not flowing in between your head and your heart, and you're really not getting a good litmus test, you know? If
Right.
you're like head and heart and you're listening to the gut at the same time, you're good. If you're in line in there and things are feeling good, you're solid. You're moving forward. I've paid attention to that since, I was 18 and went into the Corps. So that's like something that we do. One of the issues that I have, and this not an issue, excuse me. One of the things that I struggled with when I got out was I knew that I wanted to go find other veterans. It was just an issue in going and finding other ambitious veterans.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's not to say that, the majority of veterans aren't ambitious, but you see all the time homeless veteran programs and all of this other stuff. I'm sorry, and this is my own opinion. There are enough homeless veteran charities to go around.
Right.
Like there are enough wounded veteran charities to go around. Those spring up all of the time. They happen literally daily. And the problem is the majority of them fail. I mean, the vast majority of them fail. But there are very few veteran organizations or nonprofits that focus towards ambitious veterans. Like I'm an entrepreneur.
And it feels like that's more proactive than reactive, what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean that's literally the key point right there. Is it's like, okay, who do you want to help veterans? We already know. Forget studies and statistics. A veteran helps another veteran. It's just that simple.
Right.
I'm not going to go outside of my tribe to try to seek fellowship and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I can't do it because you have different evolutions of it. You have civilian, and then you evolved into Marine, and I'm still a Marine, but now I'm a Marine veteran. So I'm not on active duty. I'm not a sergeant. We claim the title forever. On into eternity, I'll be a Marine.
Right.
And so the point of that, though, is I turn around to Marines for peer support and stuff like that. Like one of our other organizations, Warrior Hall, you can look them up, warriorhall.org. Sign up for their newsletter right now, warriorhall.org. Sign up right now, and they're going to start doing Warrior Hall link-ups. They're like 15 minutes, okay? And initially, they're going to be 15 minutes. We're going to kick them here in Bunker Labs RDU at the Frontier Building on Thursdays, okay, at 4 p.m. Everybody gets together here for happy hour, right? And it's free booze. People get together and hang out. I think there's like a cash area and then there's like a keg area, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't drink, so I can't give you the full detail on that. But veterans, come on down, hang out with us, stuff like that. Just kind of hang out and BS and stuff. The reason why I bring up Warrior Hall, though, is because they're doing a peer support training package to get a clinician mindset. Only they're not going to do like the in-office therapy thing. They're going to be at the happy hour hanging out with everybody else. And so the point is that the Warrior link up in peer support. It's easy to go around and say that I want 50% of returning veterans to go into entrepreneurship. What are we going to do when they have mental health needs? Because they're going to go to the VA, and the VA is going to be like, oh, yeah, entrepreneurship, that's cute. Okay, here's a smock, start packing grocery bags. Right. And I'm not joking. They told me that. So they don't have a plan for entrepreneurs. There's vocational rehabilitation and other stuff like that. But if I want to seek fellowship with other entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs who are veterans,
right.
So I'm going through veteran stuff, and I want to hang out with other veterans who are ambitious and want to go change the world again. Good, let's hang out together, and that's why, I mean, Bunker Labs is it's like this massive thing that's just collecting momentum, and it's unstoppable at this point. I mean, if you're a veteran and you're in entrepreneurship, you need to be affiliated with Bunker Labs in one way, shape, or form. You just have to. They're nationwide. You can do online bunker in a box. You can do in-house brick and mortar type stuff. Each cohort's different connections. They aim to educate, inspire, and connect. It's great. And I mean, from their senior leadership, Todd Connor. Todd Connor is a former surface warfare naval officer. Okay, he's the CEO of Bunker Labs. We did our launch at Bunker RDU, and like anybody else, like any other event, there was like an after get together out at the pub hanging out. I mean, the guy gives you the time of day. You're just sitting there BSing and stuff, doing cigars and sea stories,
Right.
which is basically like our podcast,
Yep.
our show. Where are you going to find that? We're equals in that regard. I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. I mean, it just, oh my goodness. When I found that, it just, I don't even know how to put it. It was like add value, because I was going through a rough time when I was in Boston.
Yeah.
Not just doing the veteran thing. I mean, that's one piece of it. No, I wanted to find other entrepreneurs.
Right.
And that was a struggle for me there. And so down here, it's much better.
Do you make a distinction between like entrepreneur and like all the other terms that go along with that, entrepreneur, freelancer, solopreneur, entrepreneur? Like, do you make those distinctions?
That's a great question. That is an awesome question, because I do not.
No, okay.
If you're a 1099 contractor, in my opinion, you're an entrepreneur.
Cool.
Okay, so here's how I frame it. In order to be a veteran, you need a DD-214. Okay? The DD-214 is discharge paperwork. That's it. So if you served in uniform and then for whatever reason you got broken feet, for one day in uniform, and they gave you a DD-214, you're a veteran. So that's who I'm talking to, okay? Because there's a lot of people out there that do not classify themselves as veterans because they're not combat veterans.
Right.
So, which I'm telling you, as a combat veteran, that doesn't matter. So, but the other aspect of this, the entrepreneur side of this, is I don't mean that you're the founder of a business. I also mean that you're working within a corporate dynamic and you'd like to innovate and do some sort of startup adjacent to whatever the corporate structure is within a similar cultural framework. Right. And that's a Drucker term. Peter F. Drucker was the one who basically coined entrepreneurship. And then that's how you got all the spin-offs coming out of GM, which I paid attention to because I'm from Michigan. So that's like a case study of mine. You know what I mean? So yes, entrepreneurs are considered, in my opinion, they fall under that blanket because you're doing the mission, or you're spearheading the mission under your own initiative. That's what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
I'm not trying. Now, are you doing it alone? You and I both know that that's never the case.
Right. That's a myth.
Right. And even solopreneurs and stuff like that, BS. They have a whole team of people that are helping them in the background. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do anything. So yeah, and then 1099 contractors also, because let me put it to you this way, and this is kind of a brainchild of ours, and we're kind of spitballing. So I very much so welcome any comments or questions that you guys have. But the idea is, like, I'm a founder, okay? I wanted to start a business, and I know that eventually, through the execution phase, I will exit, and somebody else is going to come in to do the lockstep execution work. Somebody with an MBA, blah, blah, blah. That makes sense. I'm the person who starts the culture. So I start the structure and the culture. I want to sit on the board and the follow-on, and just make sure that it doesn't deteriorate, right? I can go into a 2-year degree path and become an entrepreneur. So get the basics like accounting 101 and basic statistics and stuff like that, so that you're not completely, just a novice walking into this stuff, a neophyte. But then I have post 9/11 GI Bill left over. So I can use that towards supplementary education through like vocational rehabilitation and some of these other benefit packages. So the idea is a 2-year entrepreneurship associate's degree followed up by supplementary instruction, like e-courses. So those e-courses, basically are vetted through a series of different universities, and I'm working with other veterans who are in entrepreneurship who want to put together these different packages. But it's much easier for a veteran like myself coming out of the military. Dude, that pill is much easier to swallow, saying that I've got 2 years, then 2 years followed by whatever, just rip the elective stuff that you would normally get out of a 4-year degree path, rip that out, and then that would basically be the supplemented education. I mean, because a lot of that other stuff is to build the individual culturally, to give you a well-rounded experience. Dude, I've been around the world several times. I don't need Greek and Roman mythology. Like, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then some of the management courses I found extremely interesting, but that's because they were dissecting a lot of the stuff that I learned in the military
Mm.
and putting it into civilian terms,
Right.
which were very, very worthwhile. So anyhow, if you're a veteran coming out the back gate, you can go to a 2-year degree path, pop out from there and get supplementary insurance, or continue on to a 4-year degree path, in which case, if you're going to NC State and you're a veteran, right now at NC State, and you want an internship, you go down there right now and say, I'm a veteran who wants an internship in a startup, and you'll go to HQ Raleigh,
Mm.
which is ran by Lewis Sheets. You know Lewis, don't you?
I
Have
don't
you ever
know
met him?
Lewis. No, I've never met him.
Like, anybody should approach him. He's very good people. If you've got an idea and you're looking at value, approach that guy. I'm sure that he's going to be able to help you out.
Cool.
So, or at least point you in the right direction. But I say all that because I'm in like Wake Tech Community College North Campus area, right?
Okay.
I'm up 401. That's my neck of the woods. So I love doing stuff with veterans who are going to the 2-year degree path and veterans who are looking to go into agriculture. Because we've got, if you're looking to go into agriculture, people don't understand that farmers are the most high tech of all. Have you ever monitored the grain markets before? I dare you to sit down and monitor the grain market.
Yeah.
You'll chew off all your fingernails within a 12-hour period. I'm telling you right now.
Yep.
That is crazy stuff. And then you watch a farmer climb out of a combine because he programmed the entire layout of his field, and it's like 5, 4, how much you got invested in your farm? It's like 32 million.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I can't even fathom to do what? To grow vegetables and all of your food? Like, what do you mean?
Right.
And then people, here's what I love. Why would you live in the middle of Kansas? Why would you live out where the tornadoes are? They're growing our food. What do you mean?
Right.
It's the most important. Anyway, that's beside the point.
Yeah,
But-
and it's true. I've got some friends that actually work at. I've got a couple of friends that work at BASF and a few that work at John Deere, and it's like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable. So, that's really interesting. Wow.
Well, we're looking to do, I mean, with me, I'm looking to do a whole pipeline. I want to bring more veterans into this area, especially up towards Lewisburg. They're widening. It's kind of like that Cake song. They're widening the corridors and adding more lanes, right?
Yep.
So 401, they're adding 2 lanes all the way up. They're already starting to clear cut all the way up to Lewisburg. So,
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're looking to bring more veterans up this way, especially who want to live in a more like rural environment.
Right.
I live out in the middle of nowhere, man. I live out on 20 acres in a log home. Do not come out to my house unannounced. You will be shot.
Right, you won't leave.
You'll be shot if you come out to my property unannounced. I'm telling you right now. But if you give me a phone call and be like, hey, man, can we come out and shoot or something like that? I got a pistol range and a rifle range, and I like shooting with other vets, you know, and stuff. Or just having folks out in small groups and stuff, just hanging out, smoking cigars on the back deck. That's what it's all about. Then you walk inside and you get a 400 megabyte internet connection.
That's awesome. So when did you oh, tell me this. What is your cigar of choice?
Ooh, that's another good question. So I'm a Drew Estates fan.
Okay.
If you guys are familiar with acid cigars, I used to smoke punch, and they're really good with coffee.
Yep.
If you're looking for a good morning cigar.
Yes.
But yeah, I like Drew Estate Acid. Let's see. Ooh, Blondie's a good one.
Okay. Yep.
But Cuba is the other one, the big fat bastard.
Yep.
Delicious. Yeah. Yeah, I'll throw down.
That's awesome.
One of our.
Do you know any of any cigar brands that's founded or led by a veteran?
That's a good question. So we've been kind of like poking into that market a little bit. I don't know any off the top of my head, and I'm going to tell you why. It's because Google and YouTube and a lot of these folks are not happy with the tobacco industry and will not allow you to advertise on there. So it's difficult. But one of the things that we're looking to do, I can kind of hint to this, in the not too distant future, we're going to be doing some bundling where we're working with other veteran-led organizations out there. There might be some brands of coffee paired with some stogies, paired with some canteen cups, It depends on where we're going with it. So yeah, but we're looking around and we're interested. That's something where I go on Veterans List US and poke around for veteran-led cigar companies.
Right.
One of my favorite things to do is just punch in my city and just punch in Raleigh, punch in Durham, whatever. Walk around, see if you can find interesting brick and mortar. Every once in a while, I'll go into a consulting place, be like, "Hey, what's up? What do you do?" "I'm a Marine." "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay." Think about it, because I'm one of those guys where I'm like, yeah, I'll go anywhere. I don't really give a damn.
Right.
But I need to have a reason. You've got to have a reason why you're actually going in someplace and doing something. Come on. Yeah. So when you walk in and you go, I'm a Marine combat veteran, and I run a podcast, Cigars and Sea Stories, and I want to share your story, and I want to BS with you. And they're like, "Oh, okay. Yeah. And it's like, "Well, how do you record?" And I'm like, "Relax, man. It's basically 4 dudes and a tape recorder."
Right.
Right.
It's
not live. This requires some form of preparation.
Yeah.
I am cognizant of the fact that I cannot say the F word right now.
Right.
On my podcast, I just go for broke, man. I don't really care. We're talking like we're back, overseas. Right. Don't listen to it how do we put it in the beginning? Don't listen to it with little baby virgin ears around or something like that. Right. But in the very beginning, we're like, due to the graphic nature of its content, listener discretion is advised. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think in that type of content, I think the stigma's changing a little bit anyways. Right? you got guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, right? That he'll just he'll freaking go for it. And it's like, take it or leave it, and it's not my style, right? Like, that's not how I communicate in any world. But there's a lot of merit to just let's just get on air and let's be real and let's be who we are, and and you'll attract the right people.
And I hate saying it this way because swear words and cuss words, I understand, are offensive to people. But what I mean by that is a lot of them wince by it. There's like a physical reaction to the word. Right. Not, I've chosen to be offended to your flag. Right. If you're offended by my flag, by the way, you can piss off. I don't really care. I defended that thing. You know what I mean? Right. So, but the verbiage, unfortunately, cussing, swearing, all that other stuff just happens when you're around a group of Marines. One of my favorite individuals, interstellar man, is Sergeant Major David Devaney. And Sergeant Major Devaney is probably one of the most beloved Marines I've ever met in my entire life. Mm-hmm. He spent 90% of his time outside of the office going and BSing with Marines downrange and basically getting in trouble for it.
Right.
Like, dude, you're not responding to emails. And he's like, emails? I'm teaching people how to kill. I don't care about emails.
I'm busy doing real work.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, normally, when you talk to the guy, I want you to know, when you see him outside of base or whatever, I won't tell you where he lives or whatever, but if you see him, he's very much so a polite, pleasant individual. When you see him in uniform, he's polite and pleasant. However, that filter is gone. Mm. And every type of messed up cuss word situation, like awful, terrible jokes and stuff like that come out. And it is awesome. It is fantastic. It is part of our culture.
So what causes that culture, right? Because you hear like the stereotype, like cursing like a sailor, right? You hear all these things. So where do you think that comes from?
Well, first of all, cursing like a sailor, I want you to know, they learned all those words from Marines. Okay, so they were on ship with Marines when they learned it.
Okay, that's fair.
No, what it comes from is it's an all-male culture being stuck on a boat together, talking about all the terrible things that they're going to do when they get to port. That's where it comes from.
Gotcha.
Dude, you're locked on a floating steel vessel out in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
I can tell you that Marine humor is grotesque and gory. I think Veterans List is watching right now, so Will knows exactly what I'm talking about. Give me a high five, home. But the thing is, though, is that there it is. But we have a grotesque and gory sense of humor because the things that we're going to see and do are so messed up in general. Like, you're going to commit violence of action, and you know that.
Right.
I mean, if you joined the Marine Corps infantry and you thought that you weren't going to go to Iraq or Afghanistan post 2003, you're an idiot, first of all, okay? No, man, you got in the wrong line.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we know exactly where we're going and what we're doing. If you are a Marine who's ever gone on recruiter's assistance, and this, no joke, my recruiter told me this. He was like, okay, you're on recruiter's assistance. You're a Marine from the Fleet Marine Force, and instead of taking leave, you take recruiter's assistance, okay? So it's kind of like a day job, but you're going home to your family in the evening. Yeah, right, if your recruiter's like, anyhow. So here's what my recruiter tells me. He goes, Mike, you got to find groups of people, men, young men, who are a little off. I'm like, well, what do I mean? And he goes, where were you recruited from? Where was the first time that you engaged with your Marine Corps recruiter? Are you ready for this? Midland High School. In the back, there's a fence, and my buddy's house is at this fence line. And a sidewalk that goes all the way down. It's called Smoker's Alley.
Nice.
It's where all the bad boys go out and have a cigarette after like third period, right? That is where I met my Marine Corps recruiter, okay?
Okay.
All the kids who are acting out in school right now, where you're like, wow, they're not going to amount to anything. Yeah, right. Wait until you put them in the Marine Corps and empower them.
Yeah.
You know, that's the cool thing about it. So they give you, don't get me wrong, they give you discipline to be able to use that tool, because you've got to be able to operate alone and unafraid. You're going to be out there, and you can't panic. So the reason why they give you discipline is so that when you're in that situation, you don't hit the panic button.
Right.
People think that they give you discipline so that you know how to fold your underwear. Yeah, right, man.
Right.
Just throw my own underwear in the drawer like anybody else. Come on. You know, no, man. I never needed to learn how to polish boots. That's old core. That's not me. I wore pajamas and boots through the desert and shot folks. I mean, that's just kind of like, that's kind of, you know,
crazy.
I mean, that's like the essence of the job.
Right.
You know, you're a Marine Corps infantryman, and you're just, I mean, I knew what I was getting myself into.
Right.
I scored high on the ASVAB. My recruiter, the first recruiter, Staff Sergeant Lustry, I think he got out as a Master Sergeant. And then my other recruiter, Master Sergeant Barrett, that dude is awesome. Well, I tested high on the ASVAB. They were like, oh, yeah, you can do anything. You can go to aviation, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, infantry. Well, but, you know, we've got computer infantry. Well, but you could, now, hear me out on this one. You could be a mechanic infantry. And they're like, why do you want to go into the infantry? And it's not what you think. It's not the go and commit to action type of thing. I legitimately wanted to go into the infantry. Just because I knew that it was where I could add the most value. You know what I mean? Like, I'm crazy, don't get me wrong, but I can have a level head in the middle of that situation. Right. And I've got situational awareness and some of the other things associated with it. There's a war going on. I wanted to add value. And it's like, okay, if you're going to go to war with the Marines. Right. You know what I'm saying? Well, not with them, but you know what I mean.
So help me with this. All right. So I'm not a vet. I've never been in any sort of service. And so one of the things for me in business that has been very important is being comfortable with failure, right? Trying something, editing as much as I can, but it's okay for me to fail, right? And I'm completely comfortable with trying something new and completely falling on my face, dusting myself off and editing and doing something else. It seems to me that someone like yourself, who you've been in places in your life and in your service where you couldn't fail. Failure meant people died, right? You couldn't go off and just willy-nilly try something new. And so I would think that my experience is telling me something that maybe your experience hasn't told you, or in a different way, right? I mean, you know that you can fail today, right? But there have been times in your life that I haven't had where it could mean you getting killed or someone else getting killed. And so how do vets, how do you make that transition from being in a world where mistakes are not an option to a world where mistakes are really a benefit?
Yeah, mistakes are never an option. I've never failed once in my entire life. I've just learned how not to do things, and then eventually learned how to do it. Mm-hmm. So I also, subscribe to Hemingway's principle of a human being cannot fail, only be destroyed.
Yep.
So I've been destroyed and rebuilt numerous times over
Right.
in a personal way.
Sure.
And then in a professional sense, I've never failed. I
Mm-hmm.
just figured out, I learned, okay, you can't do it that way.
Right.
And then went a different route and did it another way. Because you're absolutely right. You know, bullets fly, people die.
Right.
You know, but it's not like chess where you've got to be 3 moves ahead. You've got to know what to do for that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the other veterans who might be watching this might roll their eyes a bit and say, oh, situation dictates.
Mm-hmm.
But that's literally what it is. Here's the situation. What's the play card that you're going to go to? Here's the situation play card. You've also heard us say adapt, overcome,
Mm-hmm.
right? Adapt and overcome.
Right.
That's what we do. So the point is, we fail 1,000 times throughout that evolution. But the lessons learned were immediate, and then we could pivot. Immediate lesson learned, pivot. And then when you come back from patrol, you take your kit off, sit down, and immediately debrief. You don't go eat chow. You don't clean your weapon. I mean, like, you get a head call and maybe you can grab a canteen of water.
Right.
And then you will immediately debrief coming right off patrol.
Mm.
So it's all lessons learned. It's all immediately apply your lessons learned, and it's all evolution.
Mm.
That's where I personally am going to just make it my stand to remove transition out of the vocabulary of the veteran for 2 reasons. I think that you're not actually making a full transition, right? Because a transition basically is a PCS, okay, which is a permanent change in station. A transition is going from Quantico to Camp Pendleton within an organization. You're not doing that. You're going from the military and evolving into now a veteran, right? So you're a civilian,
Right.
You evolved into a Marine, right? Or a military service member. Now you're evolving into a veteran,
Right.
which is a completely different scope. I mean, I have all of these experiences and all of this training. I mean, no one needed to verify that it meant something.
Right.
So maybe that's a really, really long-winded answer, but
No, not at all. I think it was appropriate. When you were talking, it made me think of I'm a huge Dave Ramsey guy. Like I love his I love his stuff. And one of the things he talks about in a book he wrote called EntreLeadership, which is basically a leadership book for entrepreneurs, which I think is one of the best entrepreneur business books out there. But he talks about letting your people make non-fatal errors. And that's what it sounds like that is kind of was a part of your culture. Is errors okay? Non-fatal errors are never okay. And as long as you're willing to adapt and learn from those, and to me, a failure is making the same mistake twice, right? Like make it once and learn from it and do something else.
right.
But don't continue to do that same mistake.
Very well put.
Yeah. So man,
Very well put.
That's really cool.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, I can't 100% verify, but failure is only experienced with a weapon system if you look through any Marine Corps doctrine. So like you're firing, weapon fails to fire. What do? Observe, right? So you observe to see what the malfunction is. You realize that you've got obstruction of the bolt. Lock your bolt to the rear, remove the source of ammunition, clear the obstruction, place it back in, right? Or do a failure check on what you're doing, stuff like that. That's only pertaining to gear. It's never pertaining to a human being. The only time that you think of failure or non-failure is whether or not you are qualified or unqualified for something. So if you don't shoot marksman on the range, you're unqualified. You didn't fail. You're not qualified to be able to use that. So, you can look at that for however you want to look at it. The other thing that we don't have in any Marine Corps doctrine is the word retreat. So a Marine element is always basically like you can kind of think of it as it's not just a phalanx in the Spartan term, but think of it as like an amoeba, like a one-celled organism that's moving around. And I use it in that term because situational awareness allows a team to move in that one-cell organism mindset. So I'm looking outboard and I've got my sector and I already know that everybody else has their sector. It goes without saying.
Right.
I just know it and I trust it. And so if you are being attacked on one side, you can withdraw, split elements, flank, establish a base of fire, base of maneuver, whatever you want to do, or you can withdraw from one area into another pocket and then envelop the enemy from another side. So withdraw only means to advance in another position. That's why it's part of Marine Corps doctrine. You just won't find retreat. It just doesn't happen. It's not to say that we're like Billy Badass. It's just it's not in the doctrine. It doesn't. We don't accept it because you're in conflict with something. It's the different mentality. Like I talk to Army Rangers all the time, and they're a completely different breed as a whole. Swift, silent, deadly. They move in, strike through violence of action. Matter of fact, Marty Scovelin Jr. wrote the book Violence of Action, which recounts the 75th Ranger Regiment's war on terror's involvement. But yeah, in talking to them, they're like, wait a minute. So we're just two completely different monsters. The Rangers and the Marine Corps are entirely different. And so we'll go in and live not amongst the enemy, but we live where the enemy is, and we're constantly always trying to put a boot on their throat and then find more enemy. We're actively hunting them amongst them. Right. Rangers gather intel, and they are the operators and the enablers of the spear that go in and systematically target individual pockets or individuals as a whole. So two completely different missions, and we don't really understand why each other exists. We just know that we have to, right. You know. But it's in their doctrine. They don't have retreat either. They have withdraw, and so it's because you have nowhere to retreat to is the reason for it. There's nowhere to go. Like retreat means that there's a bigger element or a larger echelon. So you're out there, and then you, right. And then you sound full of retreat, and then you come back to the larger echelon. I'm dancing around the word army, by the way. But Rangers don't have the ability to go backwards, nor do Marines. I mean, where would we go? We just die. Right. So what's the point in retreating? Right. Right. That's the biggest thing is it's the we have a morbid sense of humor in how intense we are about our job, and yet it's just kind of our job. It's really not a big deal, and yet it's a very intense and highly stressful and stuff like that. I don't know. It's motivating thinking about it. Yeah, it's the same mindset that I put myself into before I step outside my house in the morning. It's that same almost entrepreneurial mindset that I've adopted now. Because it's come full circle. Originally, when I stepped out, I'm like, oh, now I've got to be a business person, and I'm not playing the veteran thing so much and stuff like that. And it was people were like, okay, they accepted the fact that I wanted to talk more business and stuff like that. But I just cannot bury the Marine within me. It just comes out. Right. It inevitably comes out. And it's like, no, you don't get it. I want to attack this problem. And I'm so passionate about it that, and when you read the 5-paragraph business plan, you'll know also that the enemy is not competition. It's the problem opportunity statement. So it's why you're creating a business. Right. And I attack the enemy in business the same way that I would anything else. So if you're another veteran who wants to go into podcasting, like Jay Knight of Veteranology called me as he launched his podcast and said, oh man, Veteranology is kind of like the anthropology, the dissection of our culture, and you're already doing cigars and thieves stories and stuff. And if I would have known that you were doing it, maybe I would have done something else or not this at all. And I'm like, whoa, stop, hold on, time out. No, wait a minute, Jay, brother, bring it in. Hold on. You are an adjacent unit. You are side by side addressing the same market and the same enemy as I am. So I'm out on patrol wondering where the hell you've been the entire time. And you're going, well, if I would have seen you before. So literally, here's what I envision, okay, is Jay on the wall inside of the patrol base looking at me through binos going, oh, yeah, they're already in the middle of the firefight. I don't even bother.
Right.
Like, no, put together your show, make it better than mine, get out there and address the same need.
Right.
So that way we can grow the overall market and get ready to pivot or expand or diversify or blah, 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 all the different buzzwords.
Right. Right.
But that's what's cool about it. That's what I love. Please, if you're a veteran or if you're an entrepreneur and you want to network and you want to be part of this, that's cool. Just come hang out with us and talk to us. And we don't want to steal your idea. We want to help your idea, and how can we cross promote each other's idea?
Right. Right.
Like, and also, if somebody else starts, veteranology means that I don't have to explain so much of the marine culture.
Mm-hmm.
That means I get to go even more within my niche.
Right.
And my niche, I'm talking directly to my avatar. I'm talking to Ryan Schmeckatelli's my avatar. He's the every Marine.
Mm.
But that's who I'm talking to. That's the point. That's the essence of Cigars and Sea Stories. So the more veteranology that goes out, the less I have to explain our overall culture. Because if you want to understand Marines, why don't you just check out veteranology?
Right, right. That's awesome. And you know, one thing I love, I had a mentor that once told me he was giving me basically a lesson on purpose. Like, how do you find your purpose? And I'll never forget this. He said the best way to find your purpose is to figure out the one thing that you either want to stand for or stand against. Something that's either that every day when you wake up, like, gets you going and gets you super excited, or something that pisses you off every day. Like, one of those two things is your purpose, right? And it's cool to see, and it's cool to see your position on competition, particularly on competition, because so many people that aren't passionate about their thing just try to hoard it and keep the competition. They think competition is the enemy. When to your point, competition strengthens you. You know, it gives your platform more credibility and more merit, and it allows people to have a more diverse experience. And so, dude, that's
call
really
it
cool. A competition. Nice. I like that.
I know, right? Little funny. Synergy, co-opetition, vertical integration. Good. Nice. Jack Donaghy words. You know what I mean?
Little strategery to go along with that.
Who the hell throws a shoe? Who does that?
Oh man, that's so funny. So
yeah, co-opetition's where it's at, man. You should see how many other podcasters are in this stream, and I mastermind with them. Like, dude, if you're a veteran who wants to create a podcast, cool. I want to help you create your podcast. What's like, it's not a novel concept. People have been doing it for millennia. Come on, man. Not podcasting, but helping each other out in business.
Right.
Yeah, we have the ability to cross-promote and stuff like that and shake stuff up. I mean, how many times have you heard there is nothing better or nothing more vulnerable than entrenched success? What do you think is going on in our American society right now?
Right.
I mean, come on, dude. It is time to go out there and disrupt markets and ruin legacy economies. It is time to burn the forest so that we can actually grow something of value. Right. I mean, Jesus. And you're watching everything get offshored.
Right. And
don't attack the 1%. They have enough money to move.
Right.
And then they won't pay taxes.
Right.
Because they won't live here anymore, dummies. Like, right? Like, what is going on? Ah! Yeah. You want to shake people by their shoulders,
right.
You know, and you don't, because it wouldn't add value to their day.
Right.
But I mean, dear Lord, they've made it so easy to get so niche also in our social media and stuff like that we don't really have the ability to tell the broader public that either. It's like we're just continually preaching to the choir until we're out of existence.
Right.
There's got to be another method of being able to not just like snap people out of that fact, you know, and I'm not even going to the extremes of like deregulations in markets or anything like that. Right. You know, I'm one of these people, and you can actually see on Facebook, I wrote love, liberty, laissez-faire. That's it. So what do I believe in? Love, liberty, laissez-faire. I think that pretty much sums it up. You know what I'm saying? So love of family, love of life, love of country, all of those different things. And then, of course, liberty. Just leave me alone. I get to do whatever I want.
Right.
You do that over there, and I'll do me over here. And then, of course, laissez-faire. I want to be able, yeah, I'm a capitalist, but allow that hand to move across. Podcasts are not regulated, and people just look at it and go, well, that's high quality, or that's, clearly that person's an expert on something,
right.
But they can discern for themselves.
Right.
They don't need somebody else to tell them. I mean, case in point, let me start asking you some questions. Where's the first tab that you click whenever you visit a new website? Where do you go first? If you're just talking a generic website, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Retail, product, blah, blah, blah.
Home?
Okay, the home page, but after that, you've started scoping out the company, you've scrolled through, what would be the next tab?
About.
If you're not going to bounce them, what's that? The About tab. And every web developer tells you to put it all the way at the right. No one cares.
Right.
I think that they're wrong. It should probably be the home page.
Yeah.
Here's what we're about. Here's why we exist. Here's how we do what we do. Yeah. And here's what we do.
Yes.
Should be it.
Right.
But I ask you that loaded question because that's what we do.
Right.
Folks our age go to the About section and figure out what you're about and why you do what you do.
Right.
First.
Why do you exist?
Right. And then they choose whether or not they want, right? It's
you're
like, oh my God.
Business. Yeah.
Right. It sounds so simple.
Well, it is. Just the only practice is the only problem is common sense isn't always common practice.
All right. You're exactly right. Yeah, the guy, oh, Lord, I'm going to slaughter his name. Maybe you can help me out here. The inventor and the founder of the 5-Hour Energy. I can't remember that gentleman's name.
I don't know his name. Mm-mm.
He is a billionaire several times over and has reinvested that money into a series of startups. I think there's like 40 startups that are on his campus.
Wow.
I need to look this guy up. This was not part of my prep material, but his quote that I just love is, if you want to be successful in life, you need to take advice from one person and one person only. That's mom. And you need to have common sense and a sense of urgency. Now, or excuse me, not advice. He said, look no further than to mom, because mom always had to, if you're trying to find a hard work ethic, you only have to look no further than your own mother, right? Or whoever raised you.
Right.
And the reason for that is because they had all of these different things that were going on, and somehow there was still food on the table and all of that stuff. I mean, it's easier for me. Mom is one of my heroes, but common sense and a sense of urgency is the big takeaway. So, I mean, hard work, really? Like, is somebody reading a book trying to figure out how to work hard? Is that happening right now? Because the common sense piece is going to be glossed right over.
Right.
If somebody's reading a book on how to work hard.
Yep.
And then all you need is common sense and a sense of urgency. I mean, yes. That's one of the other things that I just despise about being out of the military now, is that the world is extremely slow. Very, 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 very slow.
Right.
Horribly, monotonously slow. And it bores me to death.
Yes.
That's why I've got like 6 things going on at the same time.
Right. And I'm very much similar in that way. How I commonly have friends tell me that they think I'm nuts for how many different places I have my hand, and to me it's like, dude, it like, what would I do if I didn't? Like, right. like I start watching Desperate Housewives. Like, like, what else am I gonna do if I'm not doing other things that I think are interesting and valuable?
Well, then, yeah, I mean, people are like, is this your hobby, or what are you doing? At first, that's how it was. They didn't realize that I made a podcast in order to make money, and now I'm doing all these other things. Like, I talked to Eddie Lazary, the host of Change Your POV. I spoke with him on Saturday night from 9 p.m. until 2 in the morning. Just mastermind, connections,
Right.
stuff like that. Why did I do that? I've done this with numerous people. I'm not doing it for the business of things. I'm doing it because I legitimately enjoy connecting with highly ambitious people
Mm-hmm.
who want to go and change the world.
Right.
And I'm going to talk about myself real quick, okay, and how I felt. I've felt wayward. Now, keep in mind, this is my life. This is not me as a veteran,
Right.
okay? This is Mike,
Right.
all right? I felt wayward, empathetic. Like when I see handicapped people, not just wounded, when I was a kid seeing handicapped, my heart would go out to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just like, oh, it was awful.
Right.
Very emotional kid. You know, still, there are some songs that just hit the heartstrings for whatever reason.
Right.
A lot of those characteristics and traits fall into the characteristics and traits of a leader because you need to be empathetic of the people that are around you.
Right.
Okay, so you've got the ability to feel empathy towards someone else. You feel wayward because you don't have a team. You have the ability to vision the future and now the structure associated with being a Marine to plan and execute that.
Right.
So it's really just grab the tribe and start working together,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's how my mentality approached.
Yeah.
But I was the kid similar to your own story. I mean, I went to Sylvan Learning Center and
Yep.
TLC and a few of these other ones that were out there, and it's like Washington Adams, Jefferson, right? You're doing all the presidents or whatever. Luckily, never did any of the meds, thank God. I just, and then later on, I'm like, I don't even believe in this. Like, I don't even believe that exists anymore.
Right.
My eldest son was diagnosed with ADHD. And that's going down a personal route and stuff like that. But I just flat out, I mean, maybe it's just me being me or belligerent or something. I just don't accept it.
Right.
I'm like, no, he's a visionary. He's like me. He just needs to flutter across multiple timelines. He does not think linear. I don't think linear. Literally, my brain works like a Gantt chart. No joke. It's all project management.
Yep.
I have 7 or 8 different stair steps going across multiple thresholds. 3 websites are being developed right now, 4 blog pieces. I'm writing a creative piece, 2 books. I've got the TED Talk coming up. Blood Stripes is up and running and being rebranded. There's countless things that are going on. I haven't even gone into the personal crap that's happening in my life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And people are like, well, he was always intelligent and very organized and stuff, but he got like a 1.2 out of high school.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, you locked me in a brick building, tethered me to a desk, and told me what to do every day.
Right.
Like, what did you expect?
Right.
What is wrong with you? You institutionalized a group of kids.
Right.
Dude, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's torture. What the hell? Teach me how to be a human being for the first 8 years of my life. You know what I mean? I could have some soft skills when I was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then I get out and everybody's like, oh, you know how to network and blah, 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 and help me with this and business development, that.
Yeah.
And, oh, you would be great in sales and marketing, that. And you understand people and yada, yada, yada. You know, all these folks did standardized testing route, went through the, you know, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't accept your script. If you saw my daily schedule, you would freak out. 9 to 5 is for the weak.
Right.
Like, no,
Right.
no. Thank you. I am not in the middle of that bell curve. I appreciate it very much. I'm going to go way over here. Yeah. And then by that same token, we could also be considered criminal masterminds if we decided to go that route also.
Yes.
Oh, if I want to be an evil, sick bastard, oh, yeah, I could do that.
Yep.
I could totally go sell drugs. I could. It'd be easy. I'd make a lot of money. I'd put Pablo, whatever, Escobar to shame.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Because my mantra is to add value to the world. Right. It's like, oh yeah, he's crazy, but he's our crazy.
Right. He's a good kind of crazy.
Right. There you go.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've got, hold on, look. So I just got this. This is a note. This is all of the tests that were given to me as a kid. And so like anytime that you're going to get, I've been telling the story about, you know, my experience for years. Since, you know, 2006, 2007, I've been telling this story publicly. And you know how, like, was it Brian Williams? Was he the news anchor that?
Oh, it went down.
Yeah, he went down because he like thought he misremembered, right? So like when I got the nod for the TEDx thing, I was like, you know what? I probably let me fact check and like like make sure that what I'm remembering is actually factual. And so like I did that. Like I've got all my like all my transcripts and stuff to like fact check and make sure. And dude, I'm doing the research over the weekend, and it was way worse than I've been telling. It was way
What's that?
it was way worse. It was way
Mm-hmm.
worse. Like the actual truth is worse than the story I've been telling. You know what I mean? And so like and that completely just like goes back to what you were saying about your son. Like, dude, I it wasn't that I was an idiot. I just didn't fit into their system.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And
Don't
I think
fit your.
Yep. And I did the medications, right? I did the Ritalin thing. And actually the way that I stopped taking Ritalin is I was taking Ritalin in 6th grade. And I had to take it twice a day. My mom would give it to me in the morning, and then my teacher would give it to me at lunch. Well, when my mom would give it to me in the morning, I'd put it in my pocket and I'd say, I'll take it after I eat breakfast, because I'd eat breakfast in the car and I wouldn't take it. And then my teacher would give it to me at lunchtime, and I'd go out to the water fountain, and I'd put both of the pills in the little water fountain drain. And so I went like months, right? And so my mom was like, why are you not, like, I got completely caught one day in the hallway, and my mom was like, why aren't you like, we're paying for this. And I said, look, if I'm going to be addicted to a drug, it's going to be because I chose it, and it's going to be a better drug, because this drug sucks. And that was it. And it was like, and it was over. But like, it didn't serve the purpose. I mean, just to sit still.
Yeah. I mean, really, honestly, the only thing that I've ever needed to be truly mindful of is bringing myself back into the moment. Mm-hmm. And I put my hands together like that because I'll often do it where I'm just like, I gotta wham, right, and I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't need to think about that. I don't need to go there on the vision. I need to be here in this moment.
Right.
That was really the only hardship. And a lot of people are going, yeah, that's exactly what you've got to do when you're in class. Well, yeah, I would agree with you to whatever extent. However, some of the teachers just weren't really all that good, at their job, or they weren't really all that entertaining, which is kind of part of their job also. It's like, to keep you involved in this. Right. And then when I learned in the Marine Corps, the biggest thing and what really broke it open for me and the blessing for me, and I can put it like that, is, people are going to laugh, but I learned how to be an instructor. I learned how to be a combat marksmanship trainer.
Right.
And when I learned how to give a period of instruction, I realized that all of my teachers sucked miserably at giving a period of instruction. I mean, bad.
Right.
Bad. And then that also played into when I went into college and started looking at the professors. I had some that were amazing professors, don't get me wrong. And then I had others that were just miserable.
Right.
Awful.
Right.
Terrible. And I'm sure it's the same in your experience. But the problem is that when you're a kid, you don't realize, because you only see a teacher who's your certifying authority, who's giving you bad marks, who's saying you're a dumbass, who's saying, oh, you'll never be able to do any of these things.
Yeah.
And then, some of us quickly realize other people don't necessarily realize that those folks don't matter. Some of us also don't necessarily realize that it's solely based upon the person.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest thing with my call to action, is that adding value has to be a personal choice that starts with you as the individual. And it sounds very simple because it is. And then you encounter your first situation where it's like, all that I want to do is blow up on this other human being. And you're like, nah, that's not going to add value.
Right. Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, right? With the teachers, like, you had the great teachers that you had in college, or even in the Marine Corps. These are people that are either standing for or against something. Yeah. They're not just going through the motions. They're not just taking a title and taking a paycheck, right? And that's that's the primary difference between a great instructor and one that does more harm than good.
Yeah, it all starts with the heart.
Right.
It all starts with the heart. You really got to know whether or not your heart's into anything. Yeah, there's a physical reaction associated with it. One of the things that I love is anytime that I think about getting up on the stage for TEDx, my blood gets pumping, and I start getting into that like presenter mode. I'm
Right.
like, ooh, all right, yeah. And other people, I mean, you know how it is. The number one fear for people is public speaking.
Right.
You know, I mean, one of the keynote speakers that we had at this national conference that I went to was, okay, so people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying, and the number one fear of death is burning alive. So people would rather burn alive than speak in public.
Yeah.
And that's what gets the blood pumping.
Right.
So I know that the heart's into it because the blood is pumping.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, your heart's trying to fly. So,
right.
dun, 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 dun. And that's what it was. Oh, dude. Anytime I walked outside the wire, I never once went outside the wire into a combat zone and worried that I was going to die. The only time that I ever worried whether or not anything was going to happen is whether or not another Marine, another, corpsman or somebody like that was going to die. Never worried about myself. Oh, and when you lock and load and step outside the wire, it's not like you're a badass, right? You are, but the feeling though is you're adding the utmost in value. Like that's like the most effective that you could possibly be
right.
at that moment in time. I think that's purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, how can I be the most effective? Yeah. I don't know.
No, I think you're right on. I mean, I absolutely think you're right on. And the thrill is being able to have had that experience. And now you know as well and better than anyone what that feeling feels like. Right? So that's like and that just goes back to the whole like veteran entrepreneur thing. Like veterans know better than civilians what that feeling of value and purpose is in such a unique way. Like I know because I've developed it. Like it wasn't given to me in the same way. And I think that's one thing that I think is just so like it's so interesting about your work and about what you're doing. So, dude, I'm pumped about your talk. I just hope you're not. I hope you're not right before me, because I wanna be out there listening and I want to be a part of the experience and a part of the crowd for that one.
I appreciate that because sincerely, I'm looking forward to yours because it resonates with me in going through that experience. And I also have to say that you have a doppelganger resemblance to one of my best friends that I grew up with, Chris. Yeah. I mean, like, you guys could be bros. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Interesting. So we may be related some way.
There you go. Well, the last name's Smith and yours is Stewart. So let's go to the common name.
Right.
But yeah, man, no, I mean, sincerely, what you're talking about, kids, like I said, my son's been diagnosed with that. I've got a son who's 10, a daughter who's 8, and another son who's 2.5. The wife wants to have 2 more. So I'll have a fire team reinforced. Better look out, world.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. And I don't want to say that I'm worried about, but when they're school age and they're really going through and they're pressing on into those formative years, especially through high school and stuff, when you know that it's hard and you're being put in a box,
right?
Those were the hardest years for me. Not just, whatever, being a kid's hard, and I get that. Being shoved in a box and told that you're a freaking moron the entire time, you're just like, no, I'm not.
Right.
No, I'm not. And it's not one of those things like, I'm going to show you. It's one of those things where it's like, no, I disagree.
Right.
I'm going to make a stand.
Right. Yeah, you're 100%. 100%. Which for me, a lot of times it was the I'll show you. It was like, I wanted to know I wanted to know how much money my 3rd grade teacher was making, because that was my goal, to make $1,000 more than that. You know what I mean? Like, and then go back.
So you made like $27,000, and you were like, okay, I'm
right,
good now.
right. But that's what it was as a kid, right? It's like, you know what? I'm going to show them because I'm going to be more. Now that obviously that changed over time, right? Like why I do what I do isn't because of like my third grade teacher, but they played a part, and it's unfortunate that you know that experience happened that way for me, but it's also it has turned into my primary platform, right? Like the two things that I stand on are the disability, like this little notebook, right? Like all of that drama, and the fact that I had to close my family business in 2011. You know, like my biggest successes have always come out of my biggest failures. So and people take that for granted.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and the other thing too is much to your credit in how you're approaching this. Have you ever heard of like the attaboy ratio?
Mm-mm.
It takes 4 attaboys to dismiss 1 negative comment.
Interesting.
So if somebody is like, dude, you're worthless, it takes 4 great jobs
right
to dismay that. The ratio is entirely backwards when you're going through school. You know, or at least it was for me.
Right.
And I'm not, dude, it's not a woe is me mentality. You know what I'm saying? I'm on the backside of that stuff. I'm just saying that it was 4 downers or 4, you suck tremendously for every 1 attaboy.
Right.
And if you can hug the attaboy, because I had great teachers along the path, it's just the majority of them were not.
Right.
Right. And so, oh man, some of my teachers out of the past, I still stay in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
But other ones, and I was fortunate enough that I had a guidance counselor my senior year who really put the brass tacks to me and said, what do you want to do and why do you want to do it? And I said, I want to be a Marine Corps infantryman. And Miss Knight helped me out in a huge, huge way. Not necessarily in, hey, you got to study for class way, but she helped me structure it and realize that there was something there that a lot of people weren't necessarily seeing. Right. And so I tell you what, I want to go give that woman a hug. You know what I mean? Right. So not all teachers are bad. It's just sometimes they aren't necessarily cognizant. They've got, maybe something there. Right. Maybe they're just different off your standard script.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. We've been talking a long time. We need to wrap this thing up.
Yeah, because I've got a developer meeting at 1:30. I've got back-to-back.
Yeah, and I've got 1 or 2 things to get done today. So cool, man. Hey,
thanks everybody.
Yeah, and I'll post this on my blog if you want the file, or I'll post it on YouTube, and you can share it as you like. But dude, thanks for the just cool conversation. It's been great just getting to know you. If for nothing else, this would have been as fun of a phone call as it has been a blab. So, yeah, dude, I actually live at the other side of 401. Like, so I live like 2 miles from Wake Tech, on the other side of 401 in South Raleigh.
Okay.
Yeah. So at some point, maybe we should meet and have break bread together downtown, because it seems like we're halfway both ways. And I will call before I show up at your house, because I've been warned. So
please do. I'm telling you, man, I've cracked a round off at a car coming out my driveway before. I'm like, no, I don't care if you're the male. You can stop back there.
Don't cross this line, right? Oh, that's funny. Yeah. All right, dude. Well, have a great day. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk soon.
Take care. Be well. Hang in there.
See you, brother.